Welcome back to the John Trading channel. You can see that Ethereum has finally broken below this 20 exponential moving average, and we've had a downturn in the MACD histogram where we haven't had this for multiple months. Plus, Bitcoin is in this continuous downwards trending channel to the downside, continuously making lower lows. Plus, I have a lot of crypto news to go through with you today, so make sure you're watching until the end of the video. This NFT Goose sold for $5.4 million, over 3,000 Ethereum. In Ethereum terms, it's the highest art blocks ever sold, and nothing is even close. The second highest was 2,100 ETH, but that was when ETH was at a much higher price, so the overall price was higher. But in terms of Ethereum, absolutely massive. So you can see here, we had this Sotheby's auction where this goose was actually sold at auction, and we had different people phoning in for different bids, and you can see it went for over $5 million. Absolutely crazy. Celsius, a previous exchange that's actually gone bankrupt, has announced that all of its customers' altcoins will be converted to Bitcoin and Ethereum. This sale will contribute more than $250 million worth of these tokens to the current selling pressure in the market, and it is actually saying that potentially over the next few days we could definitely see a little bit of a downturn in a lot of these altcoins. Reason being is they need to sell in the market to convert these back to Bitcoin and Ethereum. But if you're thinking about it, then they'll need to be going into the market and then buying Ethereum and Bitcoin. So potentially bearish for altcoins, but bullish for Bitcoin and Ethereum. It took 1 year and $120 million of customer funds for Celsius to come up with a reorganization plan. And what's the plan? Return some crypto, start the mining business, give the equity to its creditors. Bitfinex took 2 weeks to do the same thing, and SVB was in 1 weekend. This is basically a Celsius fraud. Buying Bitcoin is always a good idea, but near the 200 weekly moving average is especially very yummy. So you can see this price actually goes back to basically the beginning of Bitcoin, and every time we've touched this 200 EMA in this area, it's been a good buying point. Back in 2017, this was a good buying point. Back in 2020, this was a good buying point. And you can see we've actually dipped below the 20 exponential moving average. And basically this entire area below the average is a decent price. But you can also see it's actually looking a little bit more bearish. We didn't just support off these areas, we've actually broken through. So hopefully we can continue to the upside. Plus, this is actually a fantastic chart that I found. In this left-hand side, you have smart money, who's actually, this is basically the stealth phase. A lot of smart money is entering into the market, and the market is not moving much. Next, we have the awareness phase, where we get institutional investors like BlackRock actually coming in, and you do get an area like a bear trap in this area where you do get a bit of a first sell-off, potentially the area that we're then coming into. We then have the mania phase, where the public gets in. There's a lot of media attention, there's enthusiasm, there's greed, there's delusion, new paradigm, Bitcoin's going to take over the world. And then in this area, you get that denial because people think in this area that they're going to return back to these old all-time highs, return to normal. Then you get fear, then you get capitulation, then you get despair, people even going and leaving the market. This is happening in this blow-off phase. A lot of people just leaving and saying, oh, I'm never going to come back to Bitcoin and Ethereum, but that's truly the time to actually be fully invested. So very, very interesting. This is also major news. BlackRock just filed on Thursday for a Bitcoin exchange traded fund that would allow investors to get exposure to cryptocurrency. Betting on the asset class that has come under pressure from regulatory action in the last few months. BlackRock is an American multinational investment company based in New York, founded in 1988, and they currently have close to $10 trillion under management as of 2022. So a massive company based in New York as a multinational investment company, now looking to create a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency ETF that will be a widely available asset for people to buy. Now let's begin with the daily time frame on Bitcoin. I actually want to scroll out on the daily chart so you can see a lot more bars on this chart. The reason being is I'm actually going to grab this low that actually happened on the 30th of December 2022, and I'm going to extend this line up. You can see all I'm doing is connecting it to this line and then extending it up in this region, and this is known as a trendline trading strategy, where a lot of people are using trendline trading strategies from the bottom end. They're also putting one on the top end, and they're basically seeing if we get a breakout below this area, then it would continue bearish. If we get a breakout above this area, then it would be a bullish sign. So a lot of people actually have their stop just below this trendline trading strategy. Reason being is once we get that break, a lot of people will expect continued downside momentum. And even the same thing, if people were short in this market here, once they get an upside break of this green line, then they'll be saying, I need to get out of my trade, because we are then expecting more high prices. You can see we're basically converging right now. This is basically a form of a symmetrical triangle in a long-term pattern. And we're right about to reach this point where the apex of these two lines are meeting. So we're really very soon going to know, are we going to get this upside breakout or are we going to get this downside breakout? And it will be very clear. The ending of this pattern will happen somewhere around the start of July. So I do expect basically by the start of July, we'll either be in a long-term bearish pattern or a long-term bullish pattern. I do expect that the long-term pattern will be to the upside. The reason being is the EMA has continued now to the upside. We may have a little bit of a rollover in the EMA and then continue to the upside. I don't expect, because in this area, back through here, we had a lot of bearish momentum, and every time this EMA was coming back to get retested, we continued to the downside. Here we have this positive slope, which gives us a slightly higher probability that we are going to continue to the upside. So that's why using the daily and the weekly, you can see we're basically at this converging point. So we're very clearly going to know if we're going higher or are we going lower. I do expect higher prices, but again, trading is not a 100% game. You cannot just expect every single trade to work out. That's why you need to have a risk to reward strategy. That's why you need to use an expectancy system. That's why you need to understand the trader's equation. And that's everything that I teach in my course. Let's now come over to Binance Coin on the daily time frame. I'm actually going to use the similar trendline trading strategy. In this area, you can see what happens. We connect this low here to this low here, and we just extend it up. Every time we're above this pattern, we expect to then continue to the upside. You can see in this area what happened. We actually got that bearish breakout to the downside. And look what happened. Initially, this level was support in this area. What happens when support gets broken? Here, it was a resistance level. Here, it was a resistance level. Let me actually scroll into the chart a little bit closer so you can see. You've already seen these two lines being extended out. Now look in this area. Once we got that break below, came back and used it as resistance. It was support, broke to then resistance. Now used again as a resistance level before we had this major downturn in the market. So using these trendline trading strategies is extremely simple, but it's also extremely effective for actually understanding where the long-term trend in the market is going. If we were to continue to the upside, we would never have broken below this positive sloping trend line, and we would have come back down and then look to retest in this area. Reason being is you can see we're in a form of a trading range where the trading range is tilted to the upside, but this trading range got a breakout to the downside, which means it's no longer valid and it's now going to be a resistance level rather than a support level. Plus, as I've been speaking about on Binance Coin, we do have this downwards trending exponential moving average. So really the only trades that I'm looking for is looking to come back into this average price known as the value zone in between the medium and short-term exponential moving average. That's the price that I'll actually be looking to get again short in the market. I'm not giving financial advice. This is just my own strategy that I'm using for my personal account. But since we have a downwards trending EMA, it forces me to never buy in the market. I'm not allowed to buy this asset. I can only go in the direction of the EMA. And the best time to do that is when we get back to the average price, looking for then a retest in this area. And if I was able to get that trade somewhere around that would be over 12 to 13% profit. And on my portfolio, that would be such a fantastic trade. Even having a quick look at Dogecoin on the weekly time frame, you can see why we're having a lot of resistance in this area. It was support. Once we got broken down, it's going to act as resistance. And we were in a form of a trading range where people were selling in these high areas and buying in these lower areas. We are having slight breakouts to the downside, but again, we're just slightly in this downwards trending channel. So you can see that every time price makes a lower low, people are buying, and every time it makes a lower high, people are also selling. So once we come back into this region, people are buying. But you can see every time this low was beaten by this low, was also beaten by this low, is also beaten by this low. But every time you can see, if you look to the left in the market, that we're continuously going below the lows, but then it's getting a lot of buying pressure. Going below the lows, a lot of buying pressure. You can even see it now. We went below the low, and there's been a decent amount of buying pressure, especially from the low to the high. That's 15 to 16% positive upside trade from that side. So you can definitely see that there is a lot of momentum below bars, but really the goal, if you think about, if this is about the midpoint through here, you want to be buying in the bottom 25%. So you want to be buying in this area here. And you can see every time we've come into this area, people have been buying. And once we come into the top 25% of the top area, then people have been selling, people have been selling, and potentially looking for more sells in this area as well. So I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already, leave a like on the video, make sure you're subscribed, and leave a comment if you're enjoying these daily crypto videos.